Welcome to NARAL's The Morning After. Each Thursday, our podcast brings you the latest on reproductive health care, progressive politics, and the fight to keep abortion safe and legal. NARAL's The Morning After is a production of NARAL Pro-Choice Ohio. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at ProChoiceOH. Enjoy the show.
Hi, I'm Jaime.
Hi, I'm Gabe. So last week, as soon as we clicked stop and uploaded the podcast, I went back to my desk and I saw that there was some breaking news out of Minnesota. And as the afternoon went on, it became clear that Prince had died, which is just devastating. So I don't know. Are you guys Prince fans?
Yeah.
Yes.
A resounding yes.
A resounding yes for everyone. No, it was one of those things like you don't expect because, you've got all that list of stars who are old and, may eventually get that headline. But Prince was definitely not on the radar because he lived such a clean, like Michael Jackson was tragic, but not necessarily unexpected.
Right.
But, Prince, I heard he was a vegan. I didn't know that until after he passed away. But I knew he had lived a much cleaner lifestyle than your traditional rock and roll, legend. So it was a fairly huge surprise that just all of a sudden, boom.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there had been the news in the previous week that his plane had landed, and that was big enough, just him making an emergency landing, that, we heard about that. So as soon as they said, Prince's estate, there's been a fatality, it was just instantly obvious. Yeah. Oh, no.
Yeah. And then it was confirmed. And it was even more of an oh, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, he's, I think when we were growing up, it always felt like Prince and Michael Jackson, those were like the two big names. And it was almost as if you had to choose somehow. And I got to admit, when I was little, Michael Jackson was like, the star that everybody paid attention to. I was just young enough that Prince didn't quite click. But it's become really obvious in the years since just what an amazing talent, such an amazing musician. He absolutely was. The guitar solos that you're starting to see, the Super Bowl halftime show. And they were talking about how he put out 39 studio albums. That's in 39 years. He averaged an album every single year. That's just an incredible volume of work.
Michael Jackson was an entertainer. Prince was a true musician and really entertainer. Those guitar solos rival anyone. They were really just amazing.
Right. Some of the tweets that came out were pretty interesting. They asked Dave Grohl from Nirvana and Foo Fighters that at one point in time he'd been asked, is Prince a better musician than you are? And he said, are you kidding? Prince is a better drummer than I am. And I mean, Dave Grohl's a drummer. And, his style is just something so completely unique and outrageous. There was another tweet that, got retweeted widely that talked about how Prince could go and steal your girl and steal your girl's clothes.
Yes.
And then he could steal your friend's girl wearing your girl's clothes. Nobody else can do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That was funny. I also like how they took, when he changed his name to just the symbol, and people are using the symbol on the door for gender neutral bathrooms.
Yeah.
We're just going to start using the Prince symbol,
right,
and everyone can use these bathrooms.
But that's not being done in a way that it's in any way mocking or derogatory.
No.
And when he put out that symbol, because he had such an outrageous persona, but in such a positive presentation. When he said, "Oh, I'm just going to be the symbol," it's a combination of male and female. Nobody looked at that, like when Caitlyn Jenner, became Caitlyn Jenner, there was a lot of derogatory discussion from the right, from conservatives, from people who just didn't get it. That didn't happen when Prince says, "You know what? I don't have a name anymore, and this is my symbol." Everyone was like, "Oh, well, it's Prince."
Yeah, exactly.
It worked. So the national office put up in one of the many organizations that sought to recognize him. They put out a really good article that 6 sexy ways that Prince was a feminist. So his the first thing they cited was he expresses his femininity without hangups, and I think that speaks to the gender thing. It wasn't in any way derogatory of how he said things or an expression of weakness. Number 2 is he's a long-standing equal opportunity funk leader. The past few years he's had an all-female backing band, and that's not in any way gimmicky. It's just he picked the best musicians he could find, and hey, look, they're women, and they're really rocking out.
Yeah, they are. They're really amazing.
Number 3 is he's a vegan who supports animal welfare, and the person writing this says, well, that's not specifically feminist, but it's really cool. Number 4 is he sings about his sexuality sans sexism. So it's, there was a lot of comparisons to heavy metal bands of the mid-'80s and how a lot of their stuff was very, very sexist and misogynist. The whole concept of labeling record albums as having explicit lyrics started with Prince. It was Al Gore's wife Tipper, who heard this, heard Purple Rain when she bought it for an 11-year-old daughter, and then was just shocked at the lyrics to Darling Nikki, which are very, vulgar lyrics.
Yes.
But they're not presented in a way that's, okay, maybe it's offensive if you don't want to think about sex, but he's not singing about this girl with, a negative attitude.
Yeah, or trying to control her or her sexuality. I mean, so much of the kind of pop sexuality actually plays into even rape culture and those kinds of things.
Right.
And his
Absolutely.
just totally did not, because it was very much, he wasn't explicitly talking about consent and those kinds of things, but just the way he presented it conferred that, just in the same way that we, the other songs don't explicitly say, I'm going to go out and rape these women, but they confer that I control you and I control your sexuality. And his just never did any of that.
Right. Number 5 in this list is Joni Mitchell is a huge inspiration and a role model to him. For him to look up to and acknowledge, older women in the music industry, that's kind of unique. And then number 6, he uplifts and collaborates with current female artists in a non-gross way.
It's sad that that's a standout.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, that's like this holy grail to reach up to. That's not just the standard.
Yeah. I mean, until he passed away, I had no idea he actually wrote "Nothing Compares to You," which is one of my favorite Sinead O'Connor songs.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he wrote a ton of stuff. He recorded a ton of stuff. So I mean, that was just an incredible loss. So that was Thursday, and then Saturday. I mean, just
Beyonce dropped the nuclear bomb.
Yes.
Dropped a bomb, picked up the torch, however you want to say it.
Yeah.
Released her new album that's just incredible. I'm blown away.
Yeah. I was blown away after I finally listened to it. Because I'm like, I'm not going to lie, I'm not part of the Beehive. I mean, I like Beyonce, but I'm not like someone... I don't really do that with anyone, I guess. I'm not someone who's like, oh, this album's coming out, I gotta listen to it right now.
Right.
That's not me. But I did listen to it because everyone was talking about it. Lemonade. So I listened to it and I watched like the video that she put with it. The video is like crazy. It's amazing. All the stuff that she's doing. I like made little notes about it while I was listening. She had a line in there. She said that something about heaven being love without betrayal. I'm like, does that even exist? Probably people don't mean to, but I think if you have a love relationship and it's deep, like there's going to be like some type of hurt. Yeah. Even if it's unintentional, like that's just what happens.
Yeah, there's definitely different levels and layers of betrayal. I mean, Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Kind of along the same lines as Prince, like, yes, the content and the lyrics and all those things on this album is amazing. But if you listen to it just for its music, it also, again, just shows what kind of musician level Beyonce is.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, the notes she hits and it was also just such a great musical, lyrical album
Yeah.
too.
Right. Yeah. I kind of had the same thought. Our coworker Annie, she put up a cartoon on Facebook that was it showed some guy digging through his trash can and saying, "Where's my Prince shirt? He's my most favorite artist since yesterday." And I thought, okay,
Yes.
a little bit guilty of that. I thought about it. I said, I probably at no point in time would ever said Prince is my favorite artist. I mean, it's still not true. And so that got me thinking about, well, who is, my favorite artist? If I was to answer that question honestly. And I mean, I went to like 2 concerts last year, so not that many. And they were the Alabama Shakes and Jack White. And I thought, Jack White is really outstanding. I really appreciate his music. If I had to name somebody that, who is Gabe's favorite musician, that's who it'd be. And so I'm thinking about that, and I'm listening to the Beyonce album, and I'm 3 tracks in, and I'm hearing it, and I'm like, wait a minute. That's Jack White.
Yeah.
I'm like, my favorite guy is Beyonce's backup singer on her album.
Yes.
It's incredible.
It is.
And she does get to that point that you're making. I think by the end of the album, she's expressed all these layers of grief. And she's at that point where she's saying, no relationship is perfect. And she's singing about how I understand that, you're famous and everybody's rubbing up on you. I get it. And we're going to be together. I think this album top to bottom, and the fact that everybody's been talking this much about it, and it's been out, 5 days.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's like everywhere, everything.
Yeah.
Like I love it. I hate it. I don't like this. It's talking about this. Like, it's just,
right.
Yeah.
Questlove tweeted that he's been waiting for a Black female to get a coveted Rolling Stone 5-star review. It got 5 stars from Rolling Stone. It got, terrific reviews. I think long term, this album is going to be up there with, Purple Rain, with Pink Floyd's The Wall, with some of the great Led Zeppelin, Sgt. Pepper's. And I think Beyonce and Prince, kind of being together in this week has been like the biggest week in music since the Beatles were on Sullivan. This has just been, I think, incredible.
Yeah.
So, and really big feminist statements.
Yeah. I was just thinking that though, that's one thing that people were talking about, like as far as like the Rolling Stone review and everything like that, like that's cool, but at the same time I'm like, we don't really need that, and it would still be great because I'm like, this was by a Black woman for Black women. Other people can listen, but it was like, yeah, I agree that it was like specific. Like if you watch the album, I don't think there was one white person in it, maybe one. But yeah, it was obviously she was going for, this is for Black women.
Yeah.
And of course, predictably, we got the reverse racism ridiculousness from everyone. Not from everyone, but from
certain people. Piers Morgan.
Yes. I think this is not for you.
Yeah.
She did not write it for you. She didn't write it to you.
Yes. Like, I like Beyonce before she started talking about important issues. Like, okay, so because she's Beyonce, she can't talk about, Black Lives Matter. Like,
no.
She's still Black.
Well, that's the thing. I think that a lot of people, when Black artists do cross over, they go into this, well, she's not a Black artist anymore. And so you start getting into, and frankly, that's how a lot of artists become mainstream, is they kind of let that stuff go. So for her to kind of take that mantle back with the Super Bowl show and with, the Malcolm X kind of tribute that she did there and the Black Lives Matter and everything else, she really is re-embracing that. And I think that's a really powerful statement for her, because she had broken into the mainstream and crossed over, and now she's, doing what she can to pull stupid, resistant white people back on. So hopefully some more people are listening and really hear the messages.
He was like, how is this going to be as commercially successful as her other stuff? And I'm like, Beyonce already has millions of dollars.
Right.
She didn't make this to make other, even though she will.
Yeah.
But it wasn't, I don't feel like the purpose of it was to be like, oh, now I'm going to make millions of dollars off of this. Like, it was obviously something very personal.
Oh, it absolutely was. But I'm sure it's, this is taking somebody who has been in the past, a pop artist, a dance artist, and really solidifying her into, the biggest artist, of this century so far.
Yeah. And it's like, and at the same time, it's like she's 35 years old, married with a kid. She's going to talk about like going to the club for the rest of her life. Like, no.
Right.
She's going to talk about other things.
Right. Yeah. I mean, this is like, Marvin Gaye going from Let's Get It On to What's Going On.
Exactly.
It's that big of a transition.
Yeah.
I think it's incredibly powerful. I don't think it, maybe it does change some of the endorsements that she gets, but it makes her much more of a solid person, to understand the depth of, who she is and what she's trying to say. I don't think she needed the Rolling Stone review. I think she absolutely deserved it. This is the first year where I'm going to be excited to watch the Grammys. Normally I can't stand the Grammys. I think she's going to clean house in ways that everybody expects. There's a country song in this album. I think she's going to win Country Song of the Year. I think she's going to clean up, in ways that people don't really look at her,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just incredible. So
she definitely deserves her. That's what she says this week.
Yes.
No one even gets close this week. There was no contest at all.
Yes. Yeah, Beyonce. Do it, girl. Like, no. I'm happy for Beyonce. Like I said, I don't usually like go out and like try to listen immediately, but it was really good. So I see why everyone was talking about it, and it's definitely caused controversy, but I think any good new thing causes controversy. Oh, yeah. So that's okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So moving into politics, there was 5 primaries last week. So
a lot.
Done yet?
Almost.
Is it over?
Almost.
Can we just be done?
In a month, actually.
Almost.
Yeah, we'll be 35.
No, 35 days from Tuesday. So that was 30
days.
No, it was on the radio this morning. There's 35 days in between Indiana and California.
Oh, really?
So I guess there's 9 days then.
Right. It's kind of disturbing how important Indiana is right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Trump is probably going to win it.
And he's definitely going to win it. I think he's going to win it on the first ballot. And that's what this week showed.
Yeah.
So there was 5 states, all in the eastern seaboard: Delaware, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and Maryland. Trump won all 5. Clinton won 4 out of 5. Trump is, in a position now where, assuming he doesn't, I would say screw up, but the screw ups win him votes too. So if he maintains this pace, he's gonna be in a position to win it on the RNC on the first ballot, which means that everything Kasich and Cruz are trying is irrelevant.
Yeah.
Hillary Clinton is in a position now where she doesn't actually need to win any of the remaining states. She just needs to, lose and keep it close.
$0 in the next few states, and Bernie Sanders is spending a lot of money,
but laying off staff.
Yes.
So, it does look like it's locked up. Ted Cruz and John Kasich, before those primaries, made some form of an agreement that caused Kasich to pull out of Indiana. After the primaries are over, it's really clear that Ted Cruz has no interest, if there was an agreement, of adhering to it.
Yeah.
He named Carly Fiorina as his vice presidential pick, even though normally you don't do that unless you're an actual party nominee, and he's not and never will be.
I'm gonna pick somebody. because they probably have as much. You want to be my vice president? Because that's probably about as likely as Carly Fiorina ever being vice president. So
Yeah.
Well, then I guess Kasich is trying to do the same thing. He's trying to, I'm going to pick somebody.
Oh, he said he's going to pick someone?
Yeah, he's vetting. He's currently vetting vice presidential candidates.
Like,
well, and it's funny because even the people in Indiana aren't paying attention to the pact either, because the Indianapolis Star endorsed Kasich, and then Mike Pence came out today endorsing Ted Cruz. So like nobody's, I mean, and it's stupid. I mean, the pact is stupid because that is assuming that like all the people that are currently voting for Kasich would vote for Ted Cruz. And I think that's a huge jump, you know, as we saw with the leadership out of former congressional leadership with John Boehner telling Ted Cruz Lucifer earlier this week.
Right.
You know, Kasich is kind of the mainstream kind of Republican candidate. So I can't imagine that all of Kasich's voters in any state would automatically just become Cruz voters because they weren't going to vote for Kasich.
Right.
Of course, they're also not going to go to Trump. I'm not quite sure where else they would go. But, you know, so it was a ridiculous week in politics. Absolutely.
Boehner's comments calling Cruz the son of a bitch were sort of eye-opening. He said that, and then he tweeted pictures of himself mowing his lawn, and it was just like, okay, here's the guy who does not give a damn anymore.
Gives no shit.
Mowing his lawn. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Which I'm sure John Boehner hasn't mowed grass in quite some time.
Yes. And he also called Kasich high maintenance, which I find hilarious as well. Like almost as fun as calling Cruz a son of a bitch and Lucifer.
Right. But so the entire thing seems to be kind of academic at this point. They've got it locked up. The bill for Ohio taxpayers for John Kasich's security and travels topping out at $2 million now.
Oh, great.
The Toledo Blade has called for him to stop doing this and use his remaining campaign cash to repay the state of Ohio.
Oh, hell yeah.
So it's, you know, it's time for him to read the writing on the wall. All the things that he's trying about converting delegates, it's
no.
And you see his little speech, he said he had a major announcement and then he announced nothing.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, well, you know, my wife was bringing the clothes down. His wife does laundry a lot. And she was like, my wife's bringing the clothes down to the basement, so I'm going to go help her.
He said that?
He was, in his little town hall. He was like, she's bringing clothes down to the basement. And so he was like, he went down there with her. I'm sorry, I feel really congested right now. He's like, he went down there with her and was like, oh, well, what do you think I should do, sweetie? And he was like, well, she said simple words because she's not a politician. Well, she was like, well, the people need a choice. And if you don't give it to them, who will? I'm like, that you were a choice. You've been a choice since the beginning and nobody chose you.
Right.
Like, get a clue.
Right.
Like, move on with your life. You can't keep saying like the people need a choice. And if they wanted to choose you, they would have chose you, but they didn't.
No, they didn't. Honey.
So I mean, this is the whole point. So the people haven't chosen you. Why are you going to keep going? You keep losing. They don't want you.
No, but he's the best one to beat Hillary. I'm like, well, people don't really care, so maybe they don't want to win.
Well, he needs to talk to his base about that. Like.
Yeah, of course. Then we also have the mixed feelings of he can just stay out there for as long as he wants, because if he's not here, he's not screwing shit up here. But
yeah.
So
so hopefully, you know, Hillary can save cash now and use that campaign funds to, you know, if she's facing Donald Trump, you know, please, hopefully Donald Trump ends up being as big of a failure in the general election as everybody's predicting.
Exactly.
But everybody predicted him to be really, really bad in the primary too. So it kind of scares the crap out of me just a bit.
Yeah.
But you know, there's really no such thing as winning by too small of a or too big of a margin in politics. You know, it's not like in college football where you're beating somebody and then you take a knee at the end. Because every vote that Hillary can get on a national scale carries down to people voting the rest of the ticket. And so it's really important for her to hit as hard as she can, because then that impacts U.S. Senate races, congressional, all the way down to county commissioners. And we saw that in the state of Ohio when Ed Fitzgerald crumbled as governor.
Yeah.
And not only did we not get a Democrat for a governor, we were losing, state legislative battles because people weren't getting out to the polls.
Yeah.
So it's really incredibly important that, nobody at any point in time slow up and think, oh, this is in the bag.
Yeah.
Because we can take back the Senate, the U.S. Senate as well. I mean,
Right.
even here in Ohio, we've got a competitive Senate district. So, Senate race. So we'll.
Yeah. I mean, it's absolutely critical that presidential race have the full impact that we need, even if Donald Trump falls apart. So speaking of state legislatures, here in our state legislature, we got a visit last week from Gloria Steinem. You got to go to the breakfast for that. How was that?
The breakfast was fun.
Yeah.
It was really good. It was good to see a lot of our, fabulous legislators, spending some good time with Gloria and really diving down into, what all this means and what Hillary running means for women, but also just what everything means. And I think it was really interesting. One of the people asked, because, Gloria is kind of seen kind of in some of the ways that like Hillary Clinton is seen as this kind of old school feminist that just needs to lighten up and, some of these, and because she comes from that lens, has said some things that come off occasionally tone deaf. So there was somebody in the audience who asked, a younger woman in the audience who actually asked, what do you say when people ask, who are you passing your torch to, and it was a really interesting answer because, and it really shows how we need to kind of honor all of the women in this movement, because she said this whole idea that there's one torch is this total hierarchical, patriarchal ridiculousness. There's not just one torch that one person gets to hold. So I get to keep my torch and I use it to light everybody else's so that everybody can have a torch, so that we all have a piece of this and we all do what we need to. And somebody else asked her, what do you do when, especially younger women aren't really embracing the word feminism? And she's like, I don't care what you call yourself.
Right.
She's like, we used to call ourselves women liberationists, and before feminism. And, it doesn't matter what you call yourself.
You do the work.
You do the work and you believe women should be equal in this world, then you're a feminist, whether you call yourself that or not. Call yourself, a blue person and it's fine. But, really looking at making sure that we're doing what we need to do to make women equal parts of our society is the critical piece of it.
Right.
So it was really good. Reminded of all the times that I've heard her before and how inspiring she usually is. So it's one of those things like, oh yeah, she's awesome and fabulous.
Yeah.
Yay.
This is my first time ever seeing her in person. Randi and I went to the event that they had in the evening, which was very well attended.
With the whole caucus, with the women's caucus, right?
It was with the women's caucus plus Fred Strayhorn, the House Minority Leader.
Yeah.
Although, it was a fine event, but I kind of got the feeling that, this group of people and Ms. Steinem, they did an event at breakfast. They did a lunch together.
Yeah.
By the time we got this group, they were sort of making not inside jokes, but just references to conversations that they'd had earlier. There wasn't quite the pep to the event. It was a nice conversation. I'm definitely glad that I went. But I was sitting in the back and I thought, well, okay, it's Gloria Steinem. I definitely know who she is. I know about, her career in journalism and all the things, but I don't know much more than that. So I'm sitting in the back of the audience and I pull out my phone and I'm, scrolling through, okay, Wikipedia, let's look up Gloria Steinem, read a little bit about her as I'm listening to her. Wait a minute, she's 82 years old?
Yes.
What?
Yeah.
You didn't know that?
No.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
That woman is 82 years old.
I'm like, oh my God, if you drug my 82-year-old butt to all of those events in one day and said, okay, you're going to speak at a breakfast, a lunch, and a dinner.
And she had continuous meetings all the way through. I mean, she left breakfast and met with legislative staffers after breakfast, before lunch. And then she had something else, because I was seeing pictures even in between lunch and the dinner, like in the caucus room too. I mean, that woman had a packed schedule from beginning to end. Yeah, I had my moment like that actually when she came. She came in 2000. 8?
Okay.
No, 6. Strickland's first run.
Okay.
When we actually won. And she came in 2006. We did a coalition staging event for Get Out the Vote weekend with America Votes and a whole bunch of other partners. And Emily's List brought in a whole bunch of canvassers from Oregon and everything else. And she came in to like rally, rah-rah. It was, celebrity after celebrity because everybody wanted to be in Ohio. And she came in and she was actually going canvassing with, I think, one of the directors of Emily's List.
Wow.
So in 2006, she was still like in her mid 70s, came in pleather, I think, pants and high heels and canvassed. And I just sat there like, I can't do that today. Like, I definitely can't do it in my 70s.
Yeah.
Like, I want to be her when I grow up for sure.
I mean, our lobby day is like 10 to 3 and I'm exhausted at the end
I know,
of it.
right? I was about to say, like, I wouldn't be able to do all that.
No, like she is one of the most amazing, like the energetic people of that age range that,
that was something.
Yeah, that's amazing. I didn't know that at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really liked it. I didn't really know much about her at all either. I'm not going to lie. I was a little bit skeptical. So I was like, okay, we're going to go hear about some white feminism. But then I was like really pleasantly surprised. And it's just hearing her story, her background, and all the people that she's worked with and the different things she was talking about. The one thing that stuck closely with me is towards the end, we were talking about, why is the right wing like being so like just putting forth all of these ridiculous laws right now and just seeming like they're going off the deep end and just being so hateful and like discriminatory against different groups of people and different things like that. And then she made this analogy of, when you're in an abusive relationship, the victim is never in more danger than when they're getting ready to leave or when they've left.
Yeah.
Right.
So she was like, the reason they're so angry is because they know we're about to be free. And I was like, preach.
Yeah.
That's good. Like, we're about to be free and they don't like it. But we're just going to keep pushing forward.
Yeah. She's amazing.
Yeah. So that was great. And then yesterday there was a hearing for one of our abortion providers in Dayton Women's Med Center.
Gotta harsh my buzz.
Sorry.
Come on, go from Gloria Steinem to like ridiculous anti-choice ridiculousness.
They had their hearing for their variance agreement. This is part of John Kasich's ongoing campaign to close as many abortion providers in the state of Ohio as he can. His transfer agreement requirements are where we're at right now. Women's Med Center does not
of Dayton,
yes, of Dayton. They are requesting a variance to the transfer agreement, which means that instead of getting a hospital signing on, it's individual doctors. And so this was their hearing with the state.
Yes.
So Jaime, you were at the event.
Ugh. So yeah.
Don't sound so happy.
It was loads of fun. Let me tell you, you ever want to like a riotous fun time, go to an ODH hearing. So Jennifer Branch, who is also defending the clinic in Toledo and the Planned Parenthood in Cincinnati, is also representing Haskell. She's kind of our abortion rock star attorney. She's actually in Gerhardt, Stein and Branch. So that was the firm that did the Goldfield case. So he argued
the national marriage equality case. So this is the same legal team.
Yes, this legal team is responsible for marriage equality in the United States and keeping our abortion clinics open. They're awesome. We love them. So this is really in a lot of ways a formality, because the way that Kasich wrote all these laws was that all of what the director decides is completely not challengeable. But by law, they have to be given a hearing. So it's one of those kind of, well, you get a hearing, but the hearing officer isn't allowed to do anything. So screw you. So really what this does is it lays out a future legal case. You know, the capital care case that we've been fighting in Lucas County courts for 3 years now, almost now.
Toledo's last abortion provider.
Started with an ODH hearing. So, really this is just the first step of really laying out a legal case against this whole thing. So Haskell's asking for a variance. ODH is proposing to deny the variance and close the clinic down. Their argument is that initially was that he had let's go back a couple years. So in 2012, he applied for a variance. In 2013, he applied for a variance. In 2014, he applied for a variance. In 2012, and ODH never acted on any of these applications at all. They just sat there. And so he finally went back and denied the 2012, 13, and 14 variances with the rationale that the 2014 variance only had 2 doctors and his 2012 variance had 3. So you used to have 3 doctors. You only have 2. That's not enough. I'm denying your variance.
Even though it only takes 1 doctor to perform an abortion, and that's the abortion doctor on staff.
Yeah. So, and the law only requires 1.
Right.
The law says 1 or more. So Haskell then reapplied for the 14, and at the same time applied for his 15 with 3 doctors because we said we used to have 3 and that was okay, but 2 wasn't enough. So here's 3 again. And ODH turned around and denied both the 14 reapplication and the 15 application because 3 isn't enough now.
Right.
So she's working on, trying to push ODH to approve the variance because, again, all this is ridiculous and stupid. You don't need backup doctors to get emergency treatment for women.
Right.
I mean,
and you just approved one before that had that exact number, and now it's not enough. Like,
yeah.
That makes no sense.
Yeah, and this is what we've been talking about from the very beginning. We don't need the Ohio legislature to pass any more bills to shut down every clinic in the state. The Department of Health has full authority to shut down any clinic they want to at any point in time for no reason at all right now, because the director of the Department of Health has the ability to say yes or no that a transfer agreement is valid, and he has the authority to say yes or no a variance is valid, and neither one of those are appealable or challengeable.
Right.
So he could go through and say the sky's blue today, although it's not, and therefore I'm going to deny this transfer agreement because I don't think it's valid.
Right.
And shut every clinic down in the state of Ohio.
And that's when we hit the point where people say, hey, this is an undue burden. I mean, before that point, but we would say it's an undue burden. But.
And that's been kind of the problem with Ohio's cases versus the Texas case, is that our clinics didn't close en masse like all at once.
Right.
They've kind of haphazardly happened as this restriction went into place or that restriction went into place.
But we're getting there.
Yeah, we're getting there. I mean, we've lost half of them. So this will be the last clinic in Dayton if it closes. It's also the one of only 2 providers in the state, preterm being the other one, which is in Cleveland, that goes further into pregnancy. So Haskell goes in, up to the 23rd week, 22 weeks, like 5 days or something like that. So he's the one who women have to turn to when they have fetal anomalies diagnosed later or those kinds of things, especially now that that Christ Hospital has said they're not doing fetal anomaly procedures anymore. That's the only place women in Southwest Ohio can turn to for those kinds of procedures now. So losing Haskell would be a huge burden on that area of the state.
Right.
So, so they brief it back and forth and do all kinds of legal stuff for a little bit longer. I think my guess is we probably hear something in late July, early August, so midsummer.
Okay. So watch this space, as Rachel Maddow says. Also this week, our Kellie Copeland was on All Sides with Ann Fisher. That's WOSU's radio program. We'll just briefly touch on that, saying that she kind of summarized most of the attacks that are currently underway in the state legislature. So we'll post the video on our blog. Look for that in the show notes. Speaking of talk radio, though, we have a new project. We mentioned it last week. It's coming up. It's our microphone project. You can be an amplifier. We're looking for individuals around the state of Ohio who care about choice issues, who support abortion rights, and want to become more active by learning how to submit really effective letters to the editor, do call-in radio shows, and get training on how to make an effective argument to support women's right to choose. If you would like to join our microphone project, you can email me at communications@prochoiceohio.org. All right, so then that brings us to Let's Get It On.
Yes.
Randi.
Let's get it on. Okay, so we have ComFest coming up soon.
End of June.
End of June.
Okay. What's the exact date on it?
The last weekend of
Yes,
June.
the last week.
The last weekend of June.
If people go to our Facebook page and look for events, you can find the information on that,
Okay.
and sign up to volunteer in our booth.
We'll be there. We'll be at Dayton Pride the first weekend of June, the first Saturday of June. It's just one day. And then the second weekend we have off, and it's my birthday. The third weekend, I know, isn't that lucky?
It was. It's like I planned it that way. I totally planned it that way.
Well, you know, it's the dirty 30. So,
And
and
I got you beat by a decade. It's all good.
Then the third weekend is Columbus, and that's for 2 days.
Columbus
and
Pride is 2 days.
Pride,
Yep.
yep. And then the fourth weekend, Confest and Cincinnati Pride happen at the same time. But Cincinnati Pride is just that one day, the last Saturday in June, and I'll be there. But yes, so you all can sign up at volunteer@prochoiceohio.org because we need people to help staff the booths.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of festivals too that Annie's doing in Cleveland. Not Pride, because Cleveland Pride actually got moved to August because of the RNC. Thanks, Republicans.
Right.
So, but Annie is doing a whole bunch of other ones up there. So again, volunteer at prochoiceohio.org if you're in the northern Ohio area, Akron, Cleveland, Youngstown, Toledo, and she can get you hooked up with what's going on out there too.
Yep. We always need people to help us, so we're not the only one at the booth because, you know, I might need to go to the restroom. But no, it's always have fun when I go. It's always lots of people there. You have good conversations, good food. So it's a good time. So you can sign up and work a shift. You know, shifts are usually like 2 to 3 hours and help us out at our booths. Also, me and Gabe will be at Roots Camp tomorrow. That should be fun. There's going to be a lot of different sessions there. It starts at 10:30. It goes until 3:30. So they have a session from 10:30 to 11:30. Then there's like a 2-hour break. And then there's a session from 1:30 to 2:30, which is when we're going to be presenting. And then there's a last session from 2:30 to 3:30. And it's at OCSCA.
Yes. OCSCA in Westerville.
Yeah, it's right off of Polaris Parkway.
Yep. Progress Ohio is sponsoring that event. You can find information at progressohio.org, or we posted information on our Facebook page. So look for NARAL Pro-Choice Ohio on Facebook.
Yep. Also, the Women of Color Happy Hour is planning a reproductive justice panel, or sort of a town hall. And that's going to be Saturday, May 21st. It's going to be at the Ohio Democratic Party headquarters here in Columbus. And we're going to have a lot of great women of color speakers there. I'm excited about it. And so it'll be on our Facebook page too when we get closer.
Okay. Sounds good. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.